way. Hi, everybody. Happy 2021. Welcome to #Got Money. I'm Elizabeth Jackson. So this year is going to be a big year for everybody, particularly in the property space. We already know. We've had a conversation with Terry Ryder about that. But I've always, I always have Melanie Heffernan on the show, and I try and get Melanie on once a month, once every 6 weeks, because she brings with her a vast amount of legal knowledge. So, just keeping it real, I've got Melanie Heffernan back with us again. She's going to be joining us again this year. And I can't do my show without specialists like Melanie. So, Melanie, welcome to #Got Money.
Good to see you again.
Thank you, mate. So, for our listeners that don't know, what does your law practice do?
So my law practice is Southeast Lawyers in Croydon, Victoria, and we do a whole range of different types of legal matters. So we have a strong commercial law department, which deals with matters such as the sale and purchase of businesses, leases, all sorts of loan agreements, trusts, superannuation, many things. We have a property department that does conveyancing and the complex transactions such as moving property out of trust or transferring property to a superannuation fund. We also have wills and estates. So those are two things that marry nicely together because we can tell you what the best will is for you in terms of your different circumstances. And don't be fooled, there is no one size fits all will. All of these websites that are saying, oh, just click these 5 things and it'll spit out a will that suits you, I'm very dubious of, because everybody's situations are different. So we have the wills and we have the estates, and we also have a family law department. So divorces, property matters where you need to divide up your property between yourself and your partner, and also children's issues. So we really aim to sort of be a one-stop shop for our community. And with COVID and everything now being virtual with Zoom and Teams and whatnot, we're actually able to broaden the scope of our businesses to pretty much anyone in Victoria.
Just Victoria only, or do you have reach into other states?
We have people we refer to in other states. We can do some limited transactions in other states, such as caveats. But if you're looking for somebody to do conveyancing in Queensland or a court appearance in New South Wales, then we've got people we can put you in touch with.
So you set up, it's quite interesting talking to you, because I understood that you did quite a number of different things, but I've never touched on the commercial business side of what your business. So what does that mean? What does that look like?
So our commercial business side, if you think of it as targeting people, assisting people who are in business, whether they are a small business or a large business, whether they are at the very beginning, setting up or purchasing a business, or whether they are trying to get out at the other end, whether that is acrimonious or whether it is by agreement. So if you think about all the things that small businesses need, we do leases, so we act for landlords, we act for tenants. If you want to buy a business, we review contracts of sale. We also prepare them. If you are lending somebody money or somebody is lending your business money, then you definitely need an agreement to put in writing what everybody's obligations are. Those sorts of issues that you come across in business, including the collection of debts, is something that our commercial team can assist you with.
Yeah, I do remember that we were having a conversation last year around debt collection. Mm-hmm. And you said that the laws had dramatically changed in the face of COVID. Mm-hmm. And I remember you saying something like, it can take up to 6 months now to collect a debt. Is that still the case?
Mhm. So at this stage, we are expecting that to continue. Basically, it's a moratorium on collecting debts through the process called a statutory demand. So a statutory demand is where you have a company who owes you money. There's no dispute about the money, and they won't pay. So a statutory demand is under the Corporations Act, and it enables you to serve a notice on that company saying, pay up in 21 days. If they don't pay up in 21 days, then that's considered an act of insolvency, and you can go down the path of enforcing that to put a liquidator in control of that company. But that is where the time periods have been extended. So it was 21 days, but it had been extended out to 6 months. It may be extended further. Basically, because of COVID, the government has said no, we need to put a stop on debt collection as it usually works to assist businesses to stay in practice.
Surely it must be hurting some businesses that actually need the money that they're owed.
Absolutely. It's a real issue for cash flow for many businesses. And whilst many businesses are getting JobKeeper or they're getting cash flow support, that doesn't pay all the bills. To have multiple large creditors outstanding who you can't enforce is, it's very difficult. But that's where it comes back in with your terms and conditions. And are they appropriately worded? I think you and I have discussed before, do they have a guarantee? Do they have the ability to caveat a property? Because those things are not affected by all of these COVID rules and changes.
So you still need, it's your recommendation that while we continue in this manner, that the terms and conditions of how you trade be changed or be updated to reflect this.
Definitely. I think that everybody should be looking at their terms and conditions every 2 or so years and having a proper review by a lawyer. Because lawyers are working in this field all the time. I'm not just doing one set of terms and conditions every 2 years. I'm doing them every day. So I'm across a wide range of businesses and the problems that they are seeing so that I can foresee those in other people's businesses. And I can say, you need X, Y, and Z in your terms and conditions because A, B, and C is a problem in your industry.
Yeah, that's great. So that would be, if you're getting tidy for the new year, please go ahead and get your terms and conditions revisited. I had a conversation with Courtney last year about marriages crumbling inside of COVID. Have you seen that dissipate, or are you still getting contacted to the same degree as you were last year by people wanting to end their relationships?
In my view, it has gone up, is what we are finding, that people are now in a position where they might be back at work, or maybe their spouse is back at work, and they are making the next step of making appointments, moving out of the family home, throwing their partner out of their family home, because they now have the ability to go elsewhere, to have a stream of income coming in. So it's moved off their back burner to have more priority now.
Yeah, because they're allowed to get around now, aren't they? So they can actually say, oh, you don't have to stay under the same, we don't have to stay under the same roof anymore, get out.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So that's going to continue as a part of a trend. And actually, that's a good thing, isn't it, Melanie? If you're not happy in your relationship, get out of it. My goodness, you're a long time dead. Too much.
I'm not going to get into that Vietnam.
So, family law, businesses, estate planning. So if estate planning. So if I've got my business and I'm looking to transition out of it and I want my niece to take over, and I'm just making this up, would I come and see you about putting in the framework around that?
Definitely. We're seeing a lot of people who are wanting to retire, albeit in a slow fashion, and they want to get the top dollar for their business because they have put in so much hard work over the years. So we're seeing that on one hand, and on the other hand, we're seeing that the successors to the business do not have that sort of cash readily available, probably because they've put it into their house, because you can't get a house for, under 700,000 these days. So we're seeing a lot of arrangements where the person coming in will pay for the business over a period of time using the profit that's being generated in that business. So it's a way for people to dip their toes into the business, to get a handle on it, maybe over 3 years, to phase out the current owner and be able to afford it, essentially.
Actually, that's a clever way to do it, isn't it? That's a smart way to do it.
It is, if you've got an agreement that is very clear on who does what happens with the profit, what expenses is the business paying. You do have to have a very situational document. Don't download it off the internet. It's not going to cover what you need it to cover.
And the other side of this too, and I think you'll agree with me, I have seen families, when it comes to money, do the worst things to each other. So do not do anything on a handshake. Do you agree with that? Particularly.
Absolutely. Anything that involves money, people go funny around money. I always say, which is not funny.
You're so poetical today. Thank you. Thank you for
yes, I am. And it may not necessarily be because one party goes rogue and is trying to rip the other party off. It just may be that there's been a miscommunication about a certain issue that they thought they were on the same page about, and now they realise they're not. And that causes a big issue. So definitely have it in writing, definitely have it customised to your business, to your situation. Because the amount of money it will take to rectify this, if you haven't done it correctly, is just...
It's enormous,
astronomical.
Isn't
it? It is enormous.
And it burns bridges, just not having clarity around the direction of your business, and particularly a handover, can just kill relationships. There's a mother and father, older, about my age, are in their early 50s, and they've got a daughter that's 21, 22. And I'm wondering if there might be a nefarious ex-partner in the background for the young woman. It's the vibe I'm getting. They want to buy a home, and my recommendation is that they give consideration to buying in a family trust. Is that a viable way to protect? Is that still a viable way to protect that asset, in your opinion?
Oh, you're asking me questions about family law now. Courtney will be so angry that I'm dabbling. My overriding advice to anybody who is dealing with any asset in the context of a relationship is that the family court, can do whatever they want. They've got these very broad powers. They can take into account assets that, as commercial lawyers, we would not consider assets of a relationship. They can force third parties to make orders in relation to third parties. So think about it this way. Say the parents buy a property, the daughter lives in it with her husband / wife, whoever, and a couple of years down the track, it all goes south. The property might be in the trust. It might be in the parents' name. It doesn't matter for the family court. They will look at that and say, okay, is it a resource of the relationship? Well, yes, because they've lived in it and they never had to pay a mortgage and there's a benefit there. Right. We're going to take that into account in the division of assets. And if it was the only asset and they'd been living in it for quite some time, the court would have the power to order that asset to be sold by a family trust, by the parents, whoever, and the proceeds distributed as the court says fit. Now, it's very rare that that happens because the parties come to a settlement along the line. But the family court technically has that power. So putting it in a trust is great from creditors. It's great for bankruptcy. It's good for succession planning. But in terms of the family court, don't count on it, basically.
Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
And I quite like the idea that family court can overrule that, because it is often nefarious partners trying to enact on other partners. And it's nice to know that the family court can be involved in that and say, you know what, no, there's a line in the sand here. Everybody participated to the income of this home.
Well, I believe, I don't have hard evidence, of course, but these provisions, I think, came about often in relation to the family farm. So say you're in regional Victoria, the family farm is owned by a trust. Mum and dad work on the farm, live on the farm. Son and daughter-in-law work on the farm. They draw a wage from the farm. All of their expenses are paid out of the farm. Son and partner divorce, they don't have anything. They've been working on the farm in the reliance that when parents passed away, they would take over the farm. But if she walks away and they've got no money in their bank account because they've been living out of the farm accounts, that is the sort of situation that these heavy-handed provisions in the family court would ensure that she could have the farm taken into account as a resource of the marriage, and that the court could order the farm to be sold so that she gets an amount to represent what is her fair entitlement to assets she has built up.
So the only way around it really then, and let's talk about it in the benefit of a younger woman and her parents, they could set up a family trust, but just not live, but purchase the property as an investment property for that trust. As long as the young woman and her new partner don't live in that, then he doesn't have claim to that as being part of the asset pool, does he?
Probably not. I mean, you'd be better off in that situation to put the property in the trust, to rent out the property, and benevolent parents to now and then give some cash to the husband and the wife. Because giving random amounts of cash is probably not going to be considered a resource of the relationship. It's a gift.
There's a lot to be considered, isn't there? And you know, this is the reason why I have you on the show, because you're really clever in this space. Like I couldn't even start to get my head around the half the stuff that you talk about. I mean, my goodness. Do you set up the trust for them? How does that work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so what I would have is an initial consult with that family to find out what they're looking to do. I'd throw some questions at them, you know, what if there was this scenario? What if there was that scenario? We can work out what is the best situation for them, and then we can go ahead and implement that through, we can set up the trust, we can do the conveyancing, we can do all the wills and estate planning at the same time. Sometimes there's not a bulletproof solution, but at least if you know what you're getting into, you're not going to be surprised at the end.
What's the time frame from initial consultation to getting the trust actually set up?
It's reasonably quick. If we can agree that it is a trust that we need, then we can set it up within a week. I mean, I could probably get it done within 2 days, but viewers, don't hold me to that.
There will be no 2 days, okay? I know how busy this woman is.
So it's quick. The real issue is taking the time to plan it. Don't sign a contract of sale and then go, okay, well, are we going to put it in this entity? Are we going to put it in that entity? You'll make yourself a big headache. You'll be stressed. Do it in advance. Think about what you're trying to get to at the end. Because if you're trying to get to giving your daughter some kind of financial stability, is property the best way to do that for her, considering all circumstances? Don't sign a contract of sale to find out later that actually was not the best way to support her.
Often the horse is bolted and it's too late to get, and you can't undo that, can you? You can't just put the rabbit back in the hat.
You can't unring that bell.
We could go for days on this, couldn't we?
We could.
Okay, so that's important. But there is, as long as you plan well, get hold of Melanie first before you do it. We know that there are often pretty difficult circumstances for families, particularly when there are other partners involved. So always seek legal advice first. And it's really
Never
interesting.
Listened to the guy down the pub. Just because your friend did it doesn't mean you can do it. And look, even if the friend down the pub is a lawyer, they're down the pub, so probably don't ask them at that time.
I spoke to my lawyer, he was 2 bottles in. Okay, so that's important. Melanie Heffernan, thank you for joining us from Southeast Lawyers on Got Money. How do our listeners find you?
Simplest way, go on the internet, you young folk, go on the online, and southeastlawyers.com.au. I'm there. Otherwise, you can give us a call 039723 5300, or look out for us on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, and they do a goodwill too, apparently. I want to thank...
Not that you would know.
I want to thank Melanie for joining us. Thank you, everyone at Joy that makes this show possible, that puts it to air remotely for us. We thank you enormously for your kindness. Take care, everybody. Have a good week, and we look forward to hanging out with you again next week.